Everyone, this is Dr. Vineet Sehgal and welcome to our special class. And very rarely I take a special class on the morning, but because this is a Sunday and this is my free day, so I am available at the best time which you wanted me to take the class. So in this class, this would be a rapid revision series. What I would be doing is I would be putting some important questions in the next 1 hour regarding the cornea and the conjunctiva, and we would not do a explanation of all the questions detailed, but we would basically tell you how to basically solve the questions. And in this 1 hour you would get is you would basically revise the whole important topics of the conjunctiva. Without wasting my time, I just want to ask you, am I audible? Are my screens visible to all of you? Okay, so with this I would basically start my session, and before I start the session I would be just telling you that there is a limited time offer where you are getting the iconic subscription at never before cost, just 58,500 for 3 years, 49,500 for 2 years, and 45,000 for 1 year, and 40,500 for the 1 year course. And use my code OFTHEL10 to basically subscribe for any of the course you want. Okay, so with this I would be starting my session, and this would be having a lot of MCQs to you. Okay, so my first MCQ is, mark the wrong statement regarding the corneal anatomy. Is it a transparent structure, avascular, contribute 2/3 of the refractive power of the eye, and refractive index is 1.40? Tell me which one is the wrong answer here. Okay, so you would be getting 15 seconds for every question. So can we do it fastest finger first? So in this way, what would there would be, we can basically do more of the questions, or should I basically give 15 seconds? Whatever you want. Okay. So the answer here is refractive index 1.40. This is the wrong option. Tell me, what is the refractive index of the cornea? It is not 1.40, it is 1.38. The highest refractive index is of the lens, that is 1.40. Remember, the cornea is a transparent structure, cornea is a avascular structure, and it contributes maximum to the refractive power of the eye. How much is the refractive power of the whole eye? It is 58 to 60 diopter. Out of 2/3, that means 43 diopter is contributed by the cornea. Is it clear? Chalo. Let's move to the next question. Next question is, arrange the layers of cornea from anterior to the posterior. You have the various layers given in all the options. Try to answer. Okay, so the answer here is A. Now I would be not wasting my time, but basically telling you the layers in very brief. The one which is in touch with the environment, what is this layer called? This is called epithelium. The layer beneath the epithelium के नीचे वो कौन सी layer होती है? The next layer is the one which is very good, the Bowman's membrane. And after the Bowman's membrane, we have the thickest layer of the cornea, which is, what is this layer called? This is called stroma. Okay. Beneath the stroma, there is a new layer which is discovered. What is the name of that layer? Very good. That is Dua's layer. Beneath the Dua's layer, we have the toughest layer of the cornea. What is this layer called? This is Descemet's membrane. And beneath the Descemet membrane, we have the layer which is basically the kitchen of the cell, having the hexagonal cells, a single layered structure, which is called endothelium. Okay, so these are all the layers of the cornea. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, chalo, let's move to our next question. So next question, I have just discussed it for you. Strongest layer of cornea is epithelium, endothelium, Descemet's membrane, or stroma. You have 15 seconds to answer. So those students who have just joined, this would be a rapid revision session in this 60 minutes, I would try to basically do 60 questions for you. 60 most important questions. So very good. The strongest layer of the cornea is the Descemet's membrane. Okay. So Descemet's membrane not only basically is the strongest layer, it basically protects the inside of the eye from the pathogens also. And when all the layers like epithelium, stroma, and the Bowman's membrane, they are basically sloughed, then what happens is this Descemet layer that it can protrude outside. Okay, it is an elastic layer, it can protrude outside like this, and this is called descemetocele. Have you ever heard the name? Descemetocele, usually seen in those patients. Yes, Dua is also strong, but if they ask the strongest layer of the cornea in your viva, you go for Descemet's membrane. If Dua is also given in the option, then you answer it Dua followed by the Descemet's membrane. But actually, the role of the Dua is not protective. It is a layer which we have seen during the keratoconus surgery. Okay, chalo. Let's move to our next question. So not true regarding the endothelium. 3 layer of cells, powerhouse of kitchen of the cornea, responsible for maintaining dehydration, normal specular count 2500 to 3500 millimeter per cube. Endothelium, that is the most vital layer of the cornea. So very good, we are basically having the endothelium as the single layer of cell. Okay, it is a single layer of hexagonal cells. It is not 3 layer of cells. Okay, so those students who have just joined now, this is a rapid revision session for all of you. Okay, let's move to our next question. Next question is gene responsible for anterior segment morphogenesis. Anterior segment में iris होती है, iris का एक pattern होता है, cornea होती है. अगर ये सब ठीक से नहीं बनते हैं, I call it anterior segment dysgenesis. So, which gene is responsible for anterior segment morphogenesis? So, very good. Everyone have answered it absolutely correct. Most of you, 67% of you. The answer here is A, that is PAX6 gene. Just have to remember this. If you want the genetics and ophthalmology list, this means that which gene is responsible for which condition in the eye and which genes you have to remember for the exam criteria. You can see it in our notes, which have been basically uploaded in the Unacademy Learning app. Okay, the ophthalmology made easy notes. Chalo. Let's move to our next question. Next question is a previous year question. The question was, ascorbic acid transport in cornea is mediated by which of the following? Carbonic anhydrase pump, sodium potassium pump, myo-inositol pump, or passive diffusion. This is a previous year question for AIIMS. So those students who have just joined now, this is a rapid revision session for the cornea and the conjunctiva. So we have 30% for sodium potassium, 33% for carbonic anhydrase, and 29% for the myo-inositol pump. So the answer here is sodium potassium pump, and there is some doubts regarding this question. This was a previous year question, so you can just see this reference. Okay, I have put the reference also, and this reference actually says that they have basically studied in the mice and the other animal models, and they have specifically written that the sodium potassium pump is responsible. Okay, so I think this reference would end the controversy regarding this question. This was a previous year question for AIIMS. Okay, so then we have the next question. Which of the following instrument measures the corneal sensations? Try to answer. Corneal sensations which are decreased in diseases like herpes keratitis. Okay, so if we have normally what we do is we do a cotton swab test. We put the cotton towards the temporal side of the cornea and then touch the cornea with this swab. But there is a specific instrument which can be used to measure the corneal sensations, and the name of the instrument, as most of you have told correct, is esthesiometer. Okay, chalo, let's move to our next question. Okay, so next question is, which of the following is not a feature of corneal graft failure? Okay, your options are corneal neovascularization, case dots, persistent epithelium defect, or glaucoma flecken. Try to answer. So not a feature of graft failure. Corneal graft failure. Remember, corneal transplant is most commonly done organ transplant in the world. Okay, and the answer here is D, that is glaucoma flecken. Remember, glaucoma flecken is not seen in the corneal transplant. Can anyone tell me in which condition we see glaucoma flecken? That is the anterior lenticular pigment dispersal. Okay, anterior lenticular pigment dispersal. It is seen as a component of a Vogt stride. Have you ever heard the name Vogt stride? So Vogt stride is after the attack of angle closure glaucoma, where you see pigments over the anterior capsule, you see sphincter atrophy, and you see the iris atrophy. That is the glaucoma flecken. The other features, corneal neovascularization, Case dots or Kreckmer dots. What are the Case dots or Kreckmer dots? They are basically subepithelial infiltrates. Okay, not epithelial, Vibula. It is the subepithelial infiltrates that are the first sign of the corneal graft failure, and sometimes even persistent epithelial defect. Okay, normally the epithelial defect basically heals in some time, but if it is not healing, can you see in this picture, everyone? Can you see this is the epithelial defect? Whenever we have to see the epithelial defect, we have to basically put the sodium fluorescein dye. Okay, sodium fluorescein dye, and this sodium fluorescein dye, if you can appreciate, this has basically stained the epithelium. So this, if it is remaining for more than 2 days, more than 72 hours, this is called persistent epithelial defect. Then this is a corneal graft failure. Now you would say, sir, why not it is a generalized corneal opacity? Just understand the area. Can you see this area? So this was the donor cornea which I have put here. Can you see? And now I am just enlarging it again. Can you see this neovascularization also? Okay. So the corneal neovascularization is responsible for this corneal opacity. This is not a Google picture. This is one of my own patient. Okay. So this is how the corneal graft failure looks like. Okay. So remember, another important feature which can be seen in a corneal graft failure is, as Habibullah have told us, Koda dots line. What is this? This is the streak or spindles of the pigment on the endothelial layer. Okay, can you get my point? Koda dots line, Habibullah. So they are on endothelium. Kreckmer spots or Kreckmer dots, they are on the epithelium. They both are the features of the corneal graft failure. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, chalo. Let's move to our next question. Another question for, so what they infiltrates on the Koda dots line, it is the pigment dispersal layer. Okay, okay. Chalo, let's move to our next question. Which of the following is not a contraindication for corneal transplant? Your options are CJD, active lymphoma, healed meningitis, or herpes keratitis. Try to answer fast. So those students who have just joined now, this is a rapid revision session. In this 60 minutes, we would cover whole of the cornea and conjunctiva also. So very good. The answer here is C, that is healed meningitis. Okay. So remember, CJD, active lymphoma, herpes keratitis, or high risk behavior as well. Okay. Or even the COVID deaths, they all are considered as a contraindication for corneal transplant. Now the new guidelines for corneal transplant is that if the patient is not known whether the condition is because of the COVID or not, then what you would do is you would take a swab at the point of retrieval of the cornea and then send it for the culture. If the culture is negative, only then you can basically go ahead. If the patient has got a COVID and he has recovered and it is more than 2 weeks after the recovering, then you can safely go with the corneal transplant in that patient. And if the patient is basically died because of the COVID, then you should not basically go for, yes, rabies also, then you should not basically take the cornea for the corneal transplant. Okay, chalo, let's move to the next question. So we have done the case dots. Okay, so the epithelium of the donor is cornea is replaced by regrowth of the donor epithelium, migration of stromal cells from the donor stroma, from host epithelium, or from endothelium. Try to answer fast. Anyone having any doubts till now? So I am basically teaching you the rapid revision for the cornea and conjunctiva. So very good. The answer here is C, that is host epithelium. Now, very important thing that you have to remember is epithelium is something which can regenerate very quickly. Just see this point again. So whenever we do a corneal graft, what happens is we basically remove the central part of the host cornea. इतना समझ में आ रहा है? And then what we do is we basically suture the donor cornea with the host cornea. Okay. After the host cornea is basically attached here. Now remember, host epithelium, how it is formed. There are some cells, stem cells around the limbus. Have you ever heard about them? Limbus stem cells. So limbus stem cells basically make the new epithelium. But here there are no limbus stem cells from the donor cornea. Okay. So this host epithelium basically then covers the donor epithelium. Are you getting this point? So it is the host epithelium that covers the donor's epithelium. Is it clear, everyone? Chalo. Let's move to our next question. The next question is regarding the storage media for the long-term preservation of the cornea. Your options are moist chamber, MK media, organ culture, or Optisol. So those friends who have just joined now, I am taking the session on the Unacademy Learning app, and this is the rapid revision session. In that 60 minutes, we would be basically doing more than 60 questions. So very good. The answer here is C, that is organ culture. Remember, the moist chamber is used basically for anyone? For a short-term preservation where we have to basically put the cornea within 48 hours. For 2 to 3 days, we can put it in MK media. For 5 days, we can put it in the Optisol. In the organ culture or cryopreservation, we can basically put the cornea for even more than 1 month to 3 months. Okay. So the storage media for long-term preservation. Are you getting? Most of the students have answered B as here. Okay. So it is C as the answer here. Chalo, let's move to our next question. Which of the following is indication of endothelial keratoplasty? You are seeing that I have basically put a lot of questions from the corneal transplant, which is very important for the coming exam. So remember, endothelial keratoplasty where I remove the diseased endothelium and I put a new endothelium only in these patients. So the patient must be having the problem in the endothelial area. So the endothelial dystrophy, which is the Fuchs dystrophy, you can do a endothelial keratoplasty. Granular dystrophy and macular dystrophy you do in the stromal dystrophies, and Rees-Buckler is a epithelial dystrophy. So remember, endothelial transplant like a DSEC, Descemet stripping endothelial keratoplasty, is basically done for the Fuchs dystrophy or the conditions like bullous keratopathy where the endothelium is diseased. Chalo, let's move to our next question. A patient with alkali burn is presented to the eye. Which of the following is not true regarding the immediate management? Most important topics would be covered in next 10 minutes. I basically request all of you to be very attentive. Okay, so very good. If the patient is there with the alkali burn, what the alkali burn has done is alkali burn has basically removed the epithelium and there is a corneal edema as well. Whenever there is a corneal edema, you would not see the glow coming from the fundus. If you are not able to see the glow that is coming from the fundus, you cannot do a retinoscopy or power of glasses. You have to do it only when you have a clear cornea and clear media. Okay. So retinoscopy cannot be done there. A normal saline wash is the first step that you do. Sodium citrate eye drops you use for the chelation, and the sodium ascorbate eye drops used for the re-healing of the epithelial region. Is it clear, everyone? So all these three are very important in the chemical injury. If you have not studied the chemical injury till now, you can go to my YouTube channel and just type Dr. Vineet Sehgal chemical injury. You would get the lecture on the Unacademy YouTube channel. Okay, just write YouTube Dr. Vineet Sehgal and chemical injury. A very small and short brief lecture you would get there. Okay, Let's move to our next question. Not a sign of limbus stem cell deficiency. Try to answer fast. Limbus stem cell deficiency, a very, very important topic. Remember, limbus stem cells are responsible for the regrowth of the epithelium and also to prevent the conjunctivalization of the cornea. Remember, floaters are basically the phenomena which is seen because of the cells floating in the vitreous cavity, like in the retinal detachment, like in the vitreous hemorrhage, like in the posterior vitreous detachment. It has nothing to do with the limbus stem cell deficiency. The patient may have a conjunctivalization of cornea, the patient may have a persistent epithelial defect, and because of the persistent epithelial defect, as I showed you, the patient may be having irregular staining pattern also. Okay, so these all are the factors which are responsible for the limbus stem cell deficiency. And we have the next question for you. Which of the following cannot be considered as a cause of limbus stem cell deficiency? Whenever you see these types of question, it is very important to see the word not or all of the above, because sometimes you know the question, because you are not reading the question carefully, you do the silly mistakes and your rank is 500 ranks down in 1 minute, where you could have basically done better. So the answer here is absolutely fine, the retinitis pigmentosa. Okay, retinitis pigmentosa, a disease of the rods, and because of the rhodopsin gene is involved, does not have to do anything with the limbus stem cell deficiency. Any chemical injury, mitomycin C application, even prolonged contact lens use, and the diseases like aniridia or sclerocornea can cause a limbus stem cell deficiency. Okay, with this I would be coming to a clinical based question. Just study it fast and then try to answer. We would be having 30 seconds in the answer here. Okay, so the patient came to the OPD with intense watering, pain and photophobia. She was a regular contact lens user and she forgot to remove the contact lens in the night. On examination, there was a epithelial defect. What is the first line of treatment in these patients? So the answer here is very good, discontinue contact lens. Some students were asking, sir, why not normal saline irrigation? Remember, normal saline irrigation अगर आप एपिथेलियल डिफेक्ट के ऊपर करोगे तो वो एपिथेलियम को और डैमेज कर सकता है. यहाँ पर केमिकल इंजरी नहीं है. देयर इज नो केमिकल इंजरी हियर. In a chemical injury, you have to remove the offending agent. Okay, that's why you use a normal saline irrigation there. Here, you do not have to do a normal saline irrigation. You just have to basically patch the eye, and it would remove the any blinking movements. And because the blinking movements are removed, in within 24 to 48 hours, the epithelium would heal itself, and you can put a lubricant and eye ointment of the antibiotic also to prevent any secondary infection. So remember, contact lens should not be worn more than 8 to 10 hours because they can cause a epithelial edema, and this is called a Salter-Weill phenomena. Okay, the next question is a simple question. Which of the following is not a type of stromal corneal dystrophy? I just want you everyone to answer it correct. I just told you when I started the session. So remember, the Fuchs corneal dystrophy is not a type of stromal dystrophy. Tell me which type of dystrophy it is. It is not a stromal dystrophy. So the two types of endothelial dystrophy are the Fuchs corneal dystrophy. And can anyone tell me the second one? The second one is, you call it CHED. Okay, that is the congenital hereditary endothelial dystrophy. I have taken a special lecture on the corneal dystrophies. You just write corneal dystrophy, YouTube, go to Dr. Vineet Sehgal and just basically see it. It is available on the YouTube channel of the Unacademy. Okay, so we have another question on the corneal dystrophy. Very, very important for the INI-CET exam. Stain used for macular corneal dystrophy. One which is a more difficult question for all of you, but I know that many of you students must be knowing it. So very good. I have got very nice answers here. The answer here is C, that is Elchian blue. You can just remember it with the mnemonic MAC. So the macular dystrophy, you use Elchian blue, and the meson trichome you use for the granular dystrophy. Remember, whenever you have a epithelial dystrophy like a Kogan map print, okay, or Kogan map print dystrophy, then you use sodium fluorescein and apple green birefringence pattern on the Congo green dye. Okay, sorry, Congo red dye is basically seen in the lattice dystrophy. So remember, the dystrophies and the strains that are there in the ophthalmology are so much important. I have discussed it many times. If you want to get the video, just inform me after the session. Okay, so the next question is wrong about Moran's ulcer is peripheral ulcer, oblique rodent ulcer, autoimmune, advancing border with overhanging edges, and painless. Which of the following is wrong regarding the Moran's ulcer? Try to answer it fast. Yes, Habibullah, these are the depositions in the macular and the lattice dystrophy. The lattice dystrophy is more commonly like a dystrophy which is because of the amyloid type of material. So very good. The answer here is painless. Remember, Moran's ulcer is a peripheral ulcer, okay, which is very, very painful. Okay, it is not a painless ulcer. It is very, very painful ulcer. Okay, and it is a rodent ulcer also. It is called. It is autoimmune and having the advancing border with the overhanging edges. Remember, Moran's ulcer is a very important topic. So please, please, please study it very properly. Another question regarding the corneal dystrophy is the patient presented with this type of clinical picture. Patient does not have any history of any inflammation. The visual acuity is 6/9. What is your probable diagnosis? I want the answer within 15 seconds. So you have seen that in the question itself, whenever you see a clinical based question, you see the hints that are given. So the patient does not have any history of inflammation. So option B and option D, they are gone. Now we have a Kogan Maprint dot dystrophy, which is a epithelial dystrophy. You are not seeing any epithelial defect here. Okay, so that is also gone. So the answer here is granular dystrophy. Very, very common. It is a granular dystrophy. Now the problem is that if you would have got a macular dystrophy also in this option, then how would you differentiate between the macular dystrophy and granular dystrophy? I would give you a simple example that in granular dystrophies, we have lots of opacities. In between the opacities, the space is normal. Okay, so the vision is good in these patients up to the last stage, maybe 6/9 to 6/12. But what happens in a patient in a macular dystrophy? Yes, you have opacities, but the space which is there in between the opacities, that is also a hazy. Are you getting my point? So beach ki space bhi hazily dikhai degi. So this is not a granular dystrophy. This is a more severe type of dystrophy, which is called a macular dystrophy. Remember, the granular and the macular dystrophies both are the types of stromal dystrophies. Okay, chalo, with this we come to the next question. The investigation is used for all of the following except your options are keratoconus, pre-operative LASIK checkup, keratoglobus, or herpes keratitis. I want the answer within 15 seconds. So if you are able to see, this is a pentacam which is going on. In the pentacam, you can basically tell about the anterior and the posterior curvature of cornea. You can also tell about the corneal pachymetry as well as any anterior chamber depth and anterior chamber manifestation, anterior chamber measurement you can get with the pentacam. The pentacam is basically having a very, very sophisticated structure. So it can be used for diagnosing a keratoconus. It can be used for the pre-operative LASIK checkup. Remember, in a pre-operative LASIK checkup, you have to rule out a keratoconus because the keratoconus is something which is a contraindication of doing a LASIK. Similarly, another corneal ectasia is the keratoglobus. So a pentacam basically can tell you about the keratoglobus as well. Remember, आप मुझसे पूछोगे सर डिफरेंस कैसे पता चलेगा keratoconus and keratoglobus में? So the first thing is shape. You would see a keratoconus like this and keratoglobus like this, but sometimes it is not very visible. So what you can see is that in the keratoconus, the thinning of the cornea is more around the center or periphery. Are you getting my point? Just give me a thumbs up. You get the corneal thinning in the center or the periphery, but in the patients of the keratoglobus, there is a generalized thinning. So हर जगह आपको जो कॉर्निया की थिकनेस है, जिसको हम कॉर्नियल पैकीमेट्री कहते हैं, वो टोटली लिम्बस टू लिम्बस आपको डिक्रीज मिलेगी केराटोग्लोबस में. इस तरह से आप पेंटाकैम में भी बता सकते हो कि कौन से पेशेंट को केराटोकोनस है और कौन से पेशेंट को केराटोग्लोबस है. अगर आपको ये एक नया पॉइंट लगता है तो प्लीज हाथ उठाइए, गिव मी अ थम्स अप, and also please like our session and give out your visual feedback. Okay, with this I come to my next question. calcium deposition takes place in which layer of the cornea? Try to answer fast. So what we have done in this session is I have put the previous year questions, one-liner questions, clinical-based questions, and also some new points. So within 1 hour, we would be revising everything you need in cornea and conjunctiva. So very good. The answer here is C, that is Bowman's membrane. Remember, this condition is seen in band-shaped keratopathy. Are you understanding this? Band-shaped keratopathy, which is the calcium deposition in the Bowman's membrane, basically have a very detrimental effect to the cornea, and there can be a corneal opacity. We would study in our coming slides how can basically we do the removal of this BSK. So we have the question here: a post-vitreoretinal surgery with silicone oil incision presented with the following condition, and in this condition, what can be your treatment? So here you can see there is a band-shaped keratopathy, and band-shaped keratopathy you can understand with a band-shaped pattern on the cornea. These are the visual images of my patient and not Google images. So you can basically have a very much confidence that the similar questions may be asked in your exam, because these are all the clinically relevant cases. So the answer here is EDTA. As I told you, this is a band-shaped keratopathy. Another important point that I would be telling here is that in a band-shaped keratopathy, that the patient post-vitreoretinal surgery with silicone oil, this is the most common cause of band-shaped keratopathy. Remember कि बैंड शेड केराटोपैथी सबसे ज्यादा इन कंडीशंस में मिलती है, और किन कंडीशंस में मिल सकती है क्या आप बताएंगे कमेंट सेक्शन में. सो रिमेंबर द अदर कंडीशंस व्हिच कैन कॉज अ बैंड शेड केराटोपैथी आर, प्लीज रिमेंबर, इट कैन बी एनी chronic uveitis, chronic inflammation. Okay, it can also happen in the conditions where there is a hypercalcemia. It can happen in sarcoidosis. So systemic conditions can also cause the band-shaped keratopathy. And remember, there are some chronic conditions in the eye like phthisis or atrophic bulbi. In that conditions also, you can have a band-shaped keratopathy. Okay, chalo, with this, I come to my next question. Which of the following is not a refractive correction procedure? Your options are photorefractive keratectomy, phakic IOL, eye LASIK, or collagen cross-linking. Try to answer fast. रिमेंबर, आजकल बहुत ट्रेंड है चश्मा उतारने का, बहुत सारे प्रोसीजर्स किए जाते हैं, इनमें से कौन सा प्रोसीजर नहीं है जो कि रिफ्रैक्टिव प्रोसीजर? So most of you have answered it very well. The answer here is D, that is collagen cross linking. Remember, the collagen cross linking is a procedure which is not done for the refractive. Can anyone tell me why we use it? We use it in the patients of the keratoconus. किस टाइप के keratoconus में हम यूज करते हैं? हम इसको यूज करते हैं उन keratoconus में जहां पर there is a progressive keratoconus. Okay, so in a progressive keratoconus I use it, I remove the epithelium remove करने के बाद उस पे राइबोफ्लेविन डाई डाल देते हैं. राइबोफ्लेविन डाई डालने के बाद I put a UVA radiation there. Remember which radiation? UVA radiation, and this causes the cross linking between the collagen bonds. This is called collagen cross linking, that I also called C3R. Remember, photorefractive keratectomy, phakic IOL, eye LASIK, SMILE, all these are the refractive procedures. Okay, so with this we have another question on the LASIK itself. Which of the following is not an absolute contraindication for doing a LASIK surgery? तो यानी उसमें हम कर सकते हैं LASIK सर्जरी, कौन सी चीज एब्सोल्यूट कॉन्ट्राइंडिकेशन नहीं है? So try to answer fast. The answer here is, as all of you, most of you, 64% have you answered it absolutely correct. It is the prior cataract surgery. Sometimes even in congenital cataract surgery, what happens is हम एक लेंस डालते हैं IOL पावर को कैलकुलेट करके, बट क्योंकि आई की ग्रोथ हमें पता नहीं कितने होने वाली है, we do not know the exact amount of the growth which occurs in the eye, so there may be a residual refractive error in the patient. So what we have done in a patient of a congenital cataract surgery, or even after a cataract surgeries, we have put an intraocular lens. We have not changed the curvature of the cornea. If there is still a refractive error left, I cannot remove the IOL and put another IOL there very easily. There is a lot of fibrosis. This is an intraocular surgery. So what I can do is I can change the shape or the curvature of the cornea, and this procedure I call it bioptics. Please write it in your notes, the bioptics which can be done after the cataract surgery. Okay, with this I come to my next question. A patient presented with the following investigation. What is the usefulness of the investigation? I would just show you the investigation again. So this is the investigation showing you the hexagonal cells in the cornea. Tell me, where are they used? Within 15 seconds I want to know the answer. Remember, the corneal investigations, the OCT, angiography, these are the most important for the coming exams. If you ask me, two most important topics in the coming exam, that is the systemic ophthalmology and the investigations and the instruments. So the answer here is B, that is endothelium. Remember, endothelium, we use this structure, this investigation to do it. This is called specular microscope. And please write it in the comment section. What is the normal corneal endothelial count in a child? Okay, with this, we basically come to our next question. A patient underwent a procedure as shown below. The sutures shown here are which sutures? Okay, please see the picture again. I have done a corneal transplant, and tell me what are the sutures which I have used in this procedure. Try to answer fast. So remember, corneal transplant, what we do is we put a donor cornea. In the central 7 millimeter, we remove the central 7 millimeter with the help of an instrument which is called corneal trephine, and then we put the sutures. These sutures are non-absorbable sutures. Remember, these sutures are non-absorbable sutures. Vicryl is a absorbable suture. Okay, I cannot use that. Silk are very tough sutures and they do a lot of granulomatous reaction. So remember, whenever we do a suturing in the cornea, it has to be a 10-0 monofilament nylon suture, which has to be a non-absorbable suture. Are you getting my point, everyone? Please note it down. Most of you have not answered it correct. It is the 10-0 monofilament nylon suture which is used in the corneal suturing. Okay, chalo. With this, I move to my next question. So are you enjoying the session? Just give me a thumbs up for that. A patient underwent a procedure as shown here. He may be suffering from which of the condition? Corneal ulcer, Wilson's disease, lattice dystrophy, or keratoconus. See the image once again and then try to answer as soon as possible. So what we have done is we have put a ring inside the cornea. This ring is a PMMA ring. Okay, the hard IOLs, the polymethyl methacrylate IOLs, the similar, I put a ring inside the stroma. What I does is I change the curvature of stroma. Also, I change the curvature of cornea, as well as I provide the rigidity to the cornea. And this is called ring segments. I call it intracorneal ring segments. One of the patient operated by my director, Dr. Sameer Sood, in my hospital, that is the intracorneal ring segments. Remember, the intracorneal ring segments, they are absolutely very useful in the patients of the progressive keratoconus, in the high degree of your keratoconus. Progressive keratoconus with a refractive error, both can be simultaneously corrected by this procedure, which is called intracorneal ring segments. Okay, chalo. With this, I move to our next question. The next question is, a patient presented with the clinical picture like this, but have no blurring of vision. The opacities are in the subepithelial region and the patient is symptomatic. He is also suffering from a cardiac ailment. What is the drug which is usually responsible? So if you can see, there are opacities in the corneal subepithelial region, which are more of a vortex or hole-like opacities. So they are also called cornea verticillata. So I have given you a very, very important option, that this is a cornea verticillata. And whenever we have a corneal verticillata, the important conditions that can cause it, you can just remember it with the mnemonic, that is the FA picture. So F goes with the Fabry's disease, A goes with the amiodarone, P goes with the phenothiazine, I goes with the indomethacin, and C goes with the chloroquine. Okay, so this is the mnemonic. We have taken a class on the mnemonics in ophthalmology as well. If anyone of you wants the link, you can just put it in the comment section. After the session is over, I would provide you the link there. Okay, chalo. With this, I move to my next question. The next question is, a 40-year-old patient came to the OPD with thickened eyelid concretions and the clinical picture as shown here. He may be suffering from which of the following? Ectropion, leg ophthalmos, dystichiasis, or trachoma. So here in the picture, you can see the eyelashes which are basically touching the cornea. Eyelashes are touching the cornea. Patient is having also a thickened eyelid and concretions. They all are basically pointing towards the disease. Which one of the following disease? Remember, ectropion can have the trichiasis, trachoma can have the trichiasis, dystichiasis can also have the trichiasis. But look at these two important points here. Thickened eyelid and concretions, they are also seen in trachoma. रिमेंबर एक्ट्रोपियन में थिक एंड आईलिड नहीं मिलेगी, कॉन्क्रीशन नहीं मिलेंगे, डिस्टेकियसिस में ये दोनों नहीं मिलेंगे, ट्रैकोमा में ये तीनों फीचर्स अवेलेबल होंगे. ओके, so the answer here is D, that is trachoma. Are you getting my point, everyone? So this is a session which I have made basically for the students who are going to give the exams this month. You would feel this session is very, very useful for you because in 1 hour I would be touching all the important topics in cornea and conjunctiva. So with this, I would be coming to do this question. A white ring is seen just near the limbus in a 65-year-old patient. Which of the patient is not true? Which of the statement is not true regarding this patient? So the answer here is, try to answer correctly. What is this condition called? Can anyone tell me the diagnosis also here? You are seeing a whitish ring on the limbus. So this is the diagnosis which is called arcus senilis. And remember, whenever we have a arcus senilis, it is not the calcium deposition, it is the lipid deposition. It starts inferiorly because it is not covering the center, so it does not interfere with the vision and no treatment is required. Okay, chalo, with this I come to a bit more complicated question. Please see the question once again. A female came to the eye casualty with red eyes, with discharge. On superior cornea, we have some round plaques. Doctor on duty debrided plaques and started her on topical preservative-free lubricants. So whenever you see this type of question, please break the question into various parts. So a female, red eyes, superior cornea, round plaques, debrided the plaques and preservative-free lubricants. These are the hints given in the question. What is your probable diagnosis here? Try to answer fast. So in some hints ko dekho and then try to answer. So that is how you would basically come to the answer. Most of you have come to the answer very well. The answer here is C, that is filamentary keratitis. Some of you have asked viral keratitis. Remember, viral keratitis mein hum lubricants nahi denge, hum acyclovir denge. Contact lens induced keratitis. Contact lens induced keratitis mein there would be an epithelial defect. You have to discontinue the contact lens and basically put the patch over the cornea for the re-healing of the entire epithelium. Sirf superior cornea mein defects nahi honge. Are you getting my point? So contact lens induced keratitis is not the answer here. Whole keratopathy to ho hi nahi sakta. So the answer here is filamentary keratitis. Filaments aapke superior cornea mein dikhai de sakte hain. Just remove the filaments. It is because of sometimes a very significant dry eye that you are getting these things, and you prescribe topical preservative-free lubricants. Can anyone tell me what is the drug which is used as a preservative in the topical eye drops? So remember, the name of the drug which is used for the topical eye drops is the BAC. Okay, I am asking the name of the preservative, the benzalkonium chloride. I am repeating the name. I should write it here also. It is the benzalkonium chloride. Okay, it is the BAC which is basically used as a preservative in most of the eye drops. The problem with the BAC is BAC can itself cause the epithelial defect and goblet cell destruction. So whenever we get a very, very significant dry eye, we avoid the BAC in these patients. Is it clear? Okay. So with this, I would be starting my next question. The next question is, a patient presented with the high IOP and clinical picture as shown below, post-perforating corneal ulcer. He must be suffering from which of the following? See the image again and then try to answer. Very, very important question for you. So this was a previous year question, and here you can see that the cornea basically has ulcerated, sloughed, and the uveal tissue is coming in front, which is covered by a pseudoepithelium. This condition is specifically called a staphyloma, and because it is anteriorly, I call it anterior staphyloma. Remember, anterior staphyloma, because the angles are obliterated, so there is no way the aqueous humor can drain from the posterior to the iris. So this causes a raised intraocular pressure. So that's why we have a raised intraocular pressure in this condition also. This was a previous year question. Okay, with this I come to my next question. Okay, a 10-year-old male came to the OPD with ropey discharge and cobblestone papilla on examination. The symptoms aggravate in the summer. What is the most probable diagnosis? I think the simplest question of this session, the 10-year-old child, cobblestone papilla and symptoms aggravate in the summer. So we are basically dealing with the patient who is having a spring catarrh. Okay, because the patient is having a spring catarrh. Remember, it does not happen in spring, it happens in summer. The exacerbation is in the summer. Sometimes patient present in the spring, and this is typically a vernal keratoconjunctivitis. Okay. With this, I come to my next question. A patient presented with the sudden redness of the eye, and on waking up, he is taking the antihypertensive medications also with the episode of violent cough. So, कोई inflammation नहीं है, कोई discharge नहीं है, सिर्फ redness है sclera की. What would be your treatment here? And if possible, can you please tell me what is the diagnosis in this patient also? So the answer here is C, that is wait and watch, as given by most of you. So this patient is basically suffering from subconjunctival hemorrhage. Remember the word subconjunctival hemorrhage. And before I go to the explanation, I would be telling you at 6:30 p.m. today, we would be having a very important rapid revision series on the management of glaucoma, the pharmacotherapy. In 1 hour, I would be telling you all that you need to know about the pharmacotherapy of the glaucoma and the preservatives and the pharmacotherapy that you need to see in the topic of ophthalmology. So be there at 6:30 p.m. today in my Unacademy Learning app special class that is on the pharmacotherapy of glaucoma and on the ocular pharmacology. Okay, so this is a subconjunctival hemorrhage, and whenever we have a subconjunctival hemorrhage, please remember that the hemorrhage is beneath the conjunctiva. There is no pain, no discharge, no uveitis. You just have to tell the patient to wait and watch, and it would resolve on itself. Okay, so with this, I move to my next question, which is a new pattern question of the NICT. One thing that we have seen in last few years is that never trust the NBE or the examining body or the AIIMS. What they are doing is every time they are changing the pattern. Okay, so you have to be very clear that you should be having a good knowledge. Whatever may be the pattern, you should be able to answer the question. So we have the 5 options here. Just read them properly and then try to answer. So in this question, I would be giving you 30 seconds to answer because there are 5 options. Sorry. Okay, so the answer here is B, that is 2 and 3. These are the correct options. So remember, Murren's ulcer, I told you it is not the painless, it is the painful ulcer. Caterpillar hair can cause the inflammation around the conjunctiva, so it can cause the ophthalmia nodosa. Hutchinson rule, that means if the tip of the nose is involved, this would basically lead to the involvement of the cornea and the eye. This is in the herpes zoster ophthalmicus. This is also correct. Pain is out of proportion to the signs are seen in fungal ulcer. It is not the fungal ulcer that is happening. It is there in the acanthamoeba ulcer. The pain is out of proportion. Why? Because the parasite can involve the nerves there. Soft contact lenses are made up of acrylic. This is also the wrong. Remember, the soft contact lenses are not made up of acrylic. They are made up of the hydrogel polymer. Okay, remember the foldable IOLs. Remember the foldable IOLs, they are made up of the acrylic material. Okay, so with this, I move to my next question, which was also a previous year question, true regarding the KF ring. So we have the 5 options here, and there are 2 options that are correct. One you can put it in the comment section, and other you can answer it in the poll. Try to answer. I'm starting the poll in 10 seconds. So one, you can answer it in the comment section, and the rest ones you can answer it in the poll. So anyways, pathognomic of Wilson's disease, is this correct or false? So this is false. Remember, it can be KF ring is most commonly seen in Wilson's disease, but in not all the patients of Wilson's disease. It can be seen in the primary biliary cirrhosis as well as in the neonatal hepatitis as well. Okay, it can be seen in both of these conditions. And remember, it is basically seen in both superior and inferior descendant membrane, and it is also seen in all patients with the neuropsychiatric involvement. So B and C both are correct here. Seen in all patients with the hepatic involvement. Is it true or false? So it is false. Remember, it is seen in the 50% of the patients, and it is also a ring which is the reversible ring. So no, it is not a irreversible ring. It is a reversible ring, and it can basically disappear on the treatment of penicillamine. So option B, C, and E all are correct here. Okay, Meghna? Chalo, let's move to our next question. So we have just 10 minutes left. So, okay. So the drug used in ocular surface squamous neoplasia, a squamous cell carcinoma of the conjunctiva, is which of the following? Just try to answer as fast. So ocular surface squamous neoplasia, a very, very rare condition, but a very catastrophic condition. You would get an image like this. One of my patients have come with the image like this, courtesy this picture because of my very good friend and my roommate, Dr. Puneet Jain. If you can see here, there is a very, very important mass here around the limbus. Remember, this mass is not basically invading the cornea. अगर mass cornea को invade करेगा तो वो pterygium की तरफ diagnosis चली जाती है. So mass is around the limbus, and very important is it is not a pingicula. Remember, a pingicula is a avascular structure, and in a ocular surface squamous neoplasia, we are having some blood vessels which are supplying this mass, and there are flower-shaped vessels around this mass as well, which are called these are not called sentinel vessels. Sentinel vessels are basically seen in which condition? Ciliary body melanoma. The vessels that are supplying this mass, they are basically means that this is something a tumorous mass and not a pingicula, and this is a ocular surface squamous neoplasia. And the drug which we use in the ocular surface squamous neoplasia, Anmol, please remember the name of the drug. That is, we also use it in the trabeculectomy surgeries to avoid the fibrosis. That is my favorite topical, mitomycin C. Okay, so the topical mitomycin C is used in the treatment of the ocular surface squamous neoplasia. Do you get my point, everyone? So with this, I would be starting my next question. So next question is, which of the following is not a cause of interstitial keratitis? Try to answer fast. Interstitial keratitis basically means that you have the stromal region of the cornea that is involved, but there is no epithelial defect. So आंख के अंदर cornea में आपका inflammation हो गया है, लेकिन epithelium involved नहीं हुई है. This is called interstitial keratitis. Remember, pneumococcus, which is a cause of the ulcer serpens, does not cause a interstitial keratitis. Syphilis, leprosy, chlamydia, these all are the very, very important causes of the interstitial keratitis. Okay, with this I move to my next question. Which of the following is not correct statement? We are coming to the, yes, malaria can also cause a interstitial keratitis, but though very, very, very rarely. So question is, which of the following is not a correct statement? Try to answer it as soon as possible. So we have come to our next very important topic, that is the corneal ulcers. So your options are Serpens ulcer, Pseudomonas, Staph aureus, Acanthamoeba. So the answer here is C, that is Staph aureus. Remember, the Staph aureus is not the most common cause of post-LASIK infection. The post-LASIK infection, the most common cause, if anyone of you can tell me, it is atypical mycobacteria, not epidermitis. It is the atypical mycobacteria. There is a white paper regarding the LASIK infections, and it has told us that atypical mycobacteria are the most common cause of the infection in the post-LASIK patients. So with this, I come to the corneal tattooing, a very important procedure which was asked in the All India exam few years back. So wrong about corneal tattooing. Paint a disfigured cornea with visual potential. Gold chloride and India ink is used. Change in the color occurs with time. Lamellar pocket technique is used to prevent the recurrent corneal erosions in these patients. So try to answer which of the following is the wrong statement. Corneal tattooing have been used in those patients which have the disfigured cornea. But remember, if the patient is having a visual potential, I would not do a corneal tattooing, which is a cosmetic procedure. I would go with the procedure which is called a corneal transplant. So the patient where there is a disfigured cornea with no visual potential, in those cases, I go for a corneal tattooing. In the disfigured cornea, I put the dyes like gold chloride, India ink, and platinum chloride, and these basically stain the cornea according to your iris. Okay, so उसी कलर का, जैसे कि iris है, उस कलर की हम डाई से कॉर्निया को पेंट कर देते हैं, जिससे कि कोई विजन तो वैसे ही नहीं है उस आंख में, वो देखने में दूसरी आंख जैसी लगेगी. This is the principle of the tattooing. If you get my point, just give me a thumbs up. So change in the colors occurs with the time, very, very important complication. And lamellar pocket technique is used to prevent recurrent corneal erosion. What does this mean? You do not have to go into the details. So what I do is, in the cornea, I put a pocket, I make a pocket, and then I put the dye powder here. I just want to take 5 minutes more. Okay, so I just put the dye in this area, and then it stays the eye and prevent the recurrent corneal erosion as well. Okay, chalo, with this I move to my next question. Smile. What is a smile? Okay, always keep smiling, but what the smile means in ophthalmology? Bladeless flap LASIK, blade LASIK, bladeless flapless LASIK, or blade based flapless LASIK? Try to answer fast. We have 5 minutes just left in our session. So very good. The answer here is a smile, which uses a femto laser. Okay, it uses a laser, the new laser, which is basically the femto laser, the 1053 nanometer, 10 raised to power minus 15 is the frequency. This is the laser. I do it for smile. The full name of smile is small incision lenticular extraction. Normally, what we used to do in a LASIK is we used to make a flap and then put the laser like a excimer laser and then reposit the flap. What I do in a smile is I just make an incision and remove a part of the stroma outside, okay, and then change the shape of the cornea. This is called small incision lenticular extraction. Are you getting my point? Give me a thumbs up. If you have any doubt, you can put it right now. So small incision lenticular extraction. यहाँ पे लेंस का मतलब इंट्राऑक्यूलर लेंस या फिर क्रिस्टलाइन लेंस नहीं है. लेंटिक्यूल का मतलब होता है पार्ट. Okay, here it is not lens, it is a lenticule. Okay, so I have removed the part of the stroma, so I have not made a flap. So it is a flapless LASIK, and because I have not used a blade also, it is a bladeless LASIK also. Are you getting my point? So a smile surgery is a bladeless flapless LASIK. Okay, small incision lenticular extraction. Are you getting my point, everyone? Okay, so before I end the session, I would be just telling you that there are 2 courses for you, plus the subscription and Iconic subscription. In plus subscription, you would get the advantage of the live class, live test and quizzes, batch course, structured schedule. In the Iconic subscription, you would have also the video lectures, question bank 2.0, rapid revision course, and the handwritten notes. If you want to go for any of them, you can use my code OPHTHAL10 to get a 10% discount in any of the package you want. Okay. Yeah, I cannot do it. It is because from the Unacademy session. Okay, Unacademy technical team that they can do it. Okay. Anyways, so I have just 2 more questions for you. Can we do it right now? Okay, chalo. So let's do 2 more questions. Before that, after that, I would end the session. Okay, so the question is, flictennular keratoconjunctivitis is seen in which type of hypersensitivity reaction? Flictennular keratoconjunctivitis. So remember, we have a vernal keratoconjunctivitis, which is a type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, and a flictennular keratoconjunctivitis, that is a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. Okay, do not get confused. And then we have 2 more questions on the conjunctiva. If you answer it well, we would basically end the session then. So organism responsible for hyperacute bacterial conjunctivitis. Anmol, it depends upon what is the refractive power. If the refractive power is high, let's say -7 or -8, where you want a surgery where there should be less amount of the nerve damage and less amount of the corneal damage, then the smile is the best option. Otherwise, smile itself has some complications like stria. So in that cases, we can go for a eye LASIK as well. Also remember, smile cannot correct the hypermetropia. A normal flap, the eye LASIK can basically correct the this hyperopia as well. The smile is reserved only for the myopic patients. Okay, so we come to this question. Organism responsible for hyperacute bacterial conjunctivitis is Chlamydia, adenovirus, Neisseria gonococcus, and Staphylococcus aureus. So very good. The hyperacute bacterial conjunctivitis is within 24 to 48 hours. This conjunctivitis can go and involve the cornea as well. Okay, so the cornea is involved, then it goes inside the eye without even perforation. It can basically involve the anterior segment. There is uveitis, and then it can go into the posterior segment, cause endophthalmitis. It does not basically stop here. It can go into the bloodstream and cause a septicemia as well. So see how fast this bacteria can go and can be a life-threatening infection. This is called hyperacute bacterial conjunctivitis, and it is a feature of Neisseria gonococcai infection. Okay, so with this I end my session. Hope you would have liked the session. If you like the session, just give me a thumbs up. So as all of the students have told me that okay, you have a class at 6 p.m. for pathology, I would be starting the session at 6:30 to 6:35, and in the end also, and I would do a small revision of whatever I have taught in the 6:30 to 7, so that you cannot have a something which you miss. Okay, so मैं last में छोटा सा revision भी करा दूंगा, ठीक है? So the class would be at 6:30 p.m. Before I end the session, I would be just telling you a bit about the various batch courses which are there in the Unacademy Learning app. Before that, a 3+1 subscription you have. For giving a 3-month subscription, you would get 1 month subscription free of cost. Okay, and then you have a MBBS Foundation Professional Year 2 batch, and then you have a MBBS Foundation Professional Year 3 batch, where lots of content from the top educators from all of you, and we have 4 batches for the coming exams also, which are the FFMG Test and Analysis batch, Target Next 2022 batch, and the Season Images batch. Lot of MCQs on the Unacademy Learning app, and you can also basically use the code OFTHAL10 to get a 10% discount on either the Iconic subscription or the Plus subscription. Okay, with this I would end the session. If you have any doubts in any of the question, you can put there. I would be just waiting for 30 seconds. कोई doubt है आप यहाँ पे पूछ सकते हो. Okay, so you have live classes, weekly tests, structured courses, and unlimited access in the Plus subscription. In the Iconic subscription, you would get the personal guidance, study planner, study material, expert guidance, and test and analysis also. Okay, so we would be having a class at 6:30 p.m. today. So till then, it is good day from my side. Study well, and if you have any doubt, I am always there for you. Okay, till then, good night and good day and Jai Hind.